an agenda that I'd like to see if we can move right through it. If we get to a point where we haven't reached one of the items, the storm number 5, I'm going to put that on. We have a board member who has to leave a little after 8, and he very much wants to be there for that discussion. So if we don't get there by, let's say, 8:05, we'll bring that item of the agenda up. Just to let you know, I've been told that if you're going to make changes to the agenda, you have to do it at the beginning of the meeting. Okay, do we have any public comments? Yes. Does this have to do with the storm?
Yes and no, briefly. I'd like to actually get to the varsity girls basketball game if I could. I'll be 2 minutes now if I could.
Okay, sure. Just introduce yourself, would you please?
Yes, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Chad Gordon, resident of Bennington. And yeah, seeing the agenda tonight with the storm coming raises a spotlight, I think, for an issue in this community, for the need of adequate playing fields in Bennington for our youth and everyone in Bennington. And I saw the request to use Spinelli Field. And this need for the turf field is an important one. Sports are important to a lot of people in this community. And we look at other communities and just looking at where this community is, and I'm losing my train of thought, sorry. But when I saw the request and they'd come to the select board, and knowing that the field is the way it's used, it's important to
I got you covered, don't worry.
Yeah. Making this request, I guess, is that we need a turf facility here in Bennington. I guess the words I'm trying to come up with is the request for turf is an important one to me in this community, and I don't want to just come to the board and say, hey, you know, this is something we need to do. I want to support different things, and I just want to say, hey, here's a problem. I want to offer help. So I don't know if there's a committee that could get started. I'd like to spearhead something. If there's a fundraising campaign, I'd be willing to join in. Any conversations with board members, offline or online through emails, I'd like to spearhead something to get the ball rolling on this. As a coach, traveling, seeing the turf fields in South Burlington, Rutland, Manchester, these are focal points for their communities. South Burlington, I know, especially we played there this year. They host the UVM club football team. Not many people realize UVM has a football team. They play, years ago they played the Ravens team that the Storm play. And, it's a focal point for their community. I really think this is something we could have here in Bennington. And if any board members, my email is cgordon@svsu.org. If you want to reach out, I'd love to sit down if we could, have a committee or get something going if we could.
Thank you.
All right.
I mentioned he is also the football coach.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're going to be taking that up later on the agenda.
And speaking with other coaches, I know currently there's more that football, yes, Spinelli's a football field, but there's more soccer soccer games played on that field. And I'd love to see field hockey and lacrosse and the Storm, on that field if we had a turf facility. So, like I said, anything I can do to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other public comments? Fran?
Yeah, Mary Goresh had come here before this board a couple months ago anyway, and I'm asking, wanting to know what the costs are, but the thing that concerns me now is there's still this lawsuit out there, and then wanting us to pay part of that lawsuit, so any information we can get?
Well, we are in the process of working on that.
Okay.
We'll be able, at our next board meeting, to have some more definite answers.
Okay.
I don't have anything at this particular time. We've been staying on top of it. Our attorneys have been staying on.
Continues to work.
Continues to work on it, but it is, thank you for bringing that up.
Okay.
Any others? Okay, we can move on then to finance. The treasurer's report, we just need a motion.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All those, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? The budget report is for your information. We have a donation that we have every year for sports facilities. I'm not exactly sure who these, Renee, can you help me here?
Ben Wynn, Carrie.
It's a charitable organization, so we get a letter from an attorney's office stating that they represent this organization. The organization selected Mount Anthony last year to receive a $5,000 donation, and in the letter it specifies it to be used for sports. They, again, this year have sent another $5,000, so we just would ask the board to approve that, and we will work with Tim Brown and the administrators to make sure that that money is set aside and allocated for the purpose that they've donated it to us.
I'd like to move that we accept it.
Who would be appropriate to send a thank you note to? Do you have
We
a,
could draft it for you, the board.
okay,
We do that.
okay, very good.
So
All right,
I'll
do we have a
move that
motion?
Yep,
Second.
move accept it.
We have it moved and second to accept this contribution with thanks.
Yeah.
Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Very good. We had a budget review at the Finance Committee meeting just a few minutes ago, and what we are planning is to have another Finance Committee meeting at 6 o'clock on the 17th. At that time, we will have a budget ready to present to the board at its regular meeting, which will be at 7 o'clock. And if we can come to an agreement, then we will ask the board to vote on that budget at that time. There still are a number of issues that we're working on, and we want to be sure that we have all the numbers correct and that we have covered those things that should be covered in the budget. Randy, would you like to add anything to that, or is that about?
Oh, I just wasn't sure if there were questions or you wanted me to cover highlights or.
No, I think practically everybody was
Everybody's
here,
here except
and
for
those
Rob, I
people
think.
that weren't here were at the Finance Committee meeting, so I think we're pretty good set. But thank you for your help and thank your office.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we can go down to the consent agenda. Fran?
So moved.
Do you have a
Questions?
Do we have a second?
Second it?
Any questions?
Yes.
Good?
What is the second half ancestry club?
Say it one more time. Can you say it one more time? The second
Second half ancestry club.
Ancestry Club, is that what it?
Ancestry Club,
It's a
yeah.
new club?
It's a new club.
It's a new club that's being offered there. I don't know a lot about it. I did see it come across in there, exploring family genealogy.
Right.
The second half means
Second half.
of the year.
Second,
I assume, I'm
Yeah,
going to assume.
I would say
so,
it,
yeah.
Okay.
because it's not currently running,
It would be in the second semester.
second semester.
I have another.
Good?
Tim, could you tell me what the school community liaison position is? I read it and I still don't understand.
Yeah,
So-
I have the same question.
Sure, it's a similar position to what is at the elementary school, working with families around issues of tardiness, organizing meetings, and just communicating, following up with communication with families. So it's a similar, their position at Bennington Elementary, and I believe either Molly or Pownell also has that position as well.
Is this position in the budget for
Ed?
the current year? I'm sorry.
Ed had a hand
That
up.
was,
so
that
let
was
me
a
go.
question I had. Is that in the budget? Are we adding a cost?
My purpose is to have it for just this year. I'm not proposing it for next year.
And my question was,
Is
is it covered in the budget for the existing year?
It is.
We had
I'm sorry.
budgeted for it last year?
We have the funds to fund it through the end of the year.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Ed, are you all comfortable with that answer?
so it's definitely something we need. I mean, he's doing it for part of this year, but you need that relationship with that person and the parents and the resource officer and all that kind of stuff that we're saying that we gotta do more of. So it would be interesting to find out how successful we are with that by the end of the year.
Very good. We have a motion on the floor. Are there any further questions on the consent agenda? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Very good. We can go down to the policies. Do you want to handle those, Leon?
Yes, we have 3 policies up here. One, we got the superintendent 2600 evaluation is up for wanting. Basically, we went through that as a recommendation for the committee on the SVSU that was reviewing that. And we had some pre-established goals and basically Vermont standards for administrative part of that to be added to that. So that's the gist of that. So it's up for warning.
Do you want to do
So
it
moved.
separately or take them all at once?
Do them all, do it separately.
I
2,600.
moved it.
Do you have a second? Second. This is just for a warning. All those questions? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed or abstentions? Number 2, Leon.
Policy, emergency closing of school, 3,200. Basically, the word, one word, risk, problem was changed to risk. And building principals, administrative reg statement was added into that, so.
I'll move it.
Second. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? 3.
5,100, immolization, one of the words, new thing came, moral, was changed, was deleted by the state, and added administrative regs section, a comment section to that.
So moved.
Second. All right, I have a question. I did not read that full thing. What basically does it say?
Well, in there, people in immunization was allowed to use moral as a reason to be out, to opt out. That has been deleted as one of the requirements for that.
So if a person wants to does not want their child to be immunized, what does he or she have to do?
Well, they have to follow the other things, but they can't use moral as a reason for not doing that.
But there are ways.
There are ways to opt out.
Right.
There are ways to get, okay.
Right.
All right, are there any other questions?
Leon, while you did the emergency closing, I was signing something. There's nothing in there, that emergency closing, that says you can't come to practice later in the day if it's safe, correct?
That's correct. That's not something that,
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
okay.
Are there any
Thank
other
you.
questions? We haven't voted on this yet, I don't think. Do we have a motion for it?
I moved it.
Okay, very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Okay, we can move on down to the storm. I sent to the board members the paperwork that had been sent to the superintendent. I hope that you all received it.
So,
Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, sir. First of all, I want to say good evening, Mr. Chairman and fellow board members, Mr. Colquhoun. My name is Jim Carroll. I also happen to be one of your selectmen. I'm here to introduce Jeff Grimshaw, who's going to detail the proposal that we have for you, and he's also had the owner of the Storm football team come. And what we propose is something that I think is very unique, and that is we bring together the school board, or the SVSU, the town, and Storm football team in a way that we all benefit, economically. Each and every part of those 3 components. And I think that, and I hope that this will be a springboard in not just men's sports, but women's sports and other sports that can become a profitable part of Bennington, and make this a more vibrant place. So at this point, I'll leave it up, this part of the presentation to Mr. Grimshaw and the owner of the Storm.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Merry Christmas. And this is Patrick Seaver. Patrick is, I would call him the longest tenured owner of the Vermont Storm. I'm the least tenured. I've just joined a couple, 3 months ago. While I'd like to just hand it over to Patrick, and then I can hand you, if you allow me to approach, a one sheet that even boils down the what you may or may not have in front of you. Do you want me to pass that out?
Well, I think that I sent it to everybody.
Okay.
Did everybody have a copy? Is this the proposal, the 4 things, 5 things?
Well,
Yes.
you can just take it and you can discuss it, probably. So,
Good evening, everybody. As you already know, I'm Patrick Seaver, the owner of the team. I'm here tonight to talk about field usage and why I'm here tonight. I want to go back to last December. The team folded that prior season, and I was sitting at work bored. I'm like, man, I miss football. So I got a couple of the guys together that we had prior to that year and said, hey, let's get the team going. And they said, you know what, let's do it. So we got a coaching staff, we got the players back on board, we revamped the team, new uniforms, we made ourselves professional. Prior to the season starting, we came before you guys asking for permission to use the field here. And prior to that, we got one game at the high school, which was great, but we wanted more. So we came before you guys, we talked to Tim Brown, and we got one game at the high school and two at the middle school. That was amazing. It helped us out so much. As you know, I don't know how many of you guys went to our games, but we rocked it. We won the championship game, and for those of you that were there, you have to agree, those last 4 seconds was absolutely amazing. I haven't seen hundreds of people at a game before like that. It was just, I can't express it. I've never had my heart drop and come back, hit me in the face so hard. It was just an amazing day for the community, the town, and everyone there. I have to say that I was tired toward the end of the season, starting in April and finishing in October. That was a lot for me, starting from scratch. And I wanted to pass it on and take a year off and give it to our general manager, Justin Morris, who wanted to bring the team to New York. And I found it out kind of sort of as we were shaking hands, and I was like, you know what? I had a lot of people from the community say, what's going on? Players, family, businesses, sponsors, like, what are you doing? And at that point, it hit me like a ton of bricks. This community loves this team. I love this team. And I was like, wow. It never hit me so hard because we had so much negative, it felt like pushback, but people actually did love us. And it really was found this year that everyone loved this team so much. And to go back to why I'm here is for field usage. Because I want more, the community wants more, and we want to give back also. So I'm going to let Jeff take over. I'm leaving off. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Patrick. We now currently, we call what happened in the last 4 seconds at the championship game, we call it the miracle at Mount Anthony Middle School. It happened right out there. And it is something, you can actually see it on Southern Vermont today, and you can watch it over and over again in my lame call. But generally, I have not been so excited with sports, and I have a very deep background in sports. Just very quickly, once upon a time, I headed up all on-air promotion and electronic marketing at a place called Turner Broadcasting, and that was the Atlanta Braves and CNN and TBS and TNT and NBA on TNT and NFL on TNT. And everything else that the Turner Empire put out there, it was up to me to create consumption, not only public consumption, but by the trade too. So, and working with this team this year, I have not been so excited. When they asked me to join, I thought about it for about that long. And I said yes. Why? Because I've always been the promotional guy who was kind of on the outside looking in, and they say, yeah, that's a good idea, yeah, but now I'm the promotional guy who can actually get things done, and there's really no path of resistance. So I'm like a kid in a candy store, and we have so many great and wonderful and family ideas. This is not a team of ruffians. This is, if any of you went to the games, it was family, wives, cousins, grandkids, kids. And there are a couple players up around 50, so there are grandkids involved. Let me just kind of walk you through what we're talking about here. The background, just as on the team, we are the current champions of the NAFL Maritime Conference. What is the NAFL? Well, it's the largest semi-professional football league in America. 40 teams, all throughout New England. It's getting bigger all the time. The Southern Vermont Storm, we are Bennington-based. We are a 501c3 corporation, which did generate a profit, a slight profit this year, and is currently revenue neutral with no debt. So there's no chance of us going anywhere. During 2017, there were three home dates in Bennington. There was one at Spinelli, which we call the Big House. And two at the middle school. And the middle school field, you know what, it's a nice facility, but we've outgrown it. Because we promoted so heavily that we were putting anywhere from 650 to 750 paid in. Okay, so the game we had at Spinelli eclipsed the number of people who came to any of the high school games. Okay, so I remember driving up on that game and seeing like a half an hour before, and I said, oh my gosh, there's people in the stands already. And by kickoff, it was full. It was chock full. I looked at Patrick, I looked at Chris Sipperly, who's the general manager. I said, you know what, guys? Got a business here. So this is not just an endeavor for fun and games, although it is fun and it's a game. There's profit to be made, and there's profit to be made by MAU and the rest of the team, and I'm going to get into that, how that happens in a moment. So where are we in the 2018 as we get ready for the 2018 season, which practice begins in mid-April, and games, our first practice game is June 16th, and the season kicks off in mid-July, and it runs, should we make the playoffs, which we fully intend to, and we fully intend to repeat as champions, first week in October, everything ends. Well, we have an expanded and revamped ownership team of Patrick Seaver, Chris Sipperly, and myself, and we're already in place. We're already making a difference. Now, not that we're great people. It's just this team came out of mothballs last year, and they were flying by the seat of their pants. This year, we're planning, and we're putting all sorts of getting everything buttoned up. We have a 2018 positioning statement. It's called "Play with a Champion," because we are indeed champions. There's very few times you can call yourself a champion, so we are the champions, and we want this entity, we want the town of Bennington, we want people from Manchester, people from Brattleboro, people from Williamstown, whole area, our whole, what's called the area of dominant influence of Bennington, we want them to play with a champion in eastern New York State. We have a new and expanded sponsorship roster, and it's already taking shape. And we've kind of stratified those sponsorships so that little guys can get in and the big players can get in. We have appointments to talk with people like the Bank of Bennington after the new year, and we're approaching the people like the Southwestern Vermont Medical Center because they should give us a little business because we give them so much business, sending players in various state of injury to them. So it all works out. We're just trading money. We have local and regional media partnerships that are already in place. That's with Southern Vermont Today. If you don't know that, I happen to run that outfit as well. And I'm basing it on a model of a guy I used to work for named Ted Turner, that you have the model to promote and you have the team and everything kind of works in lockstep. If you guys remember, you're all old enough to remember, well, not you, America's team, Dallas Cowboys. No. It was the Dallas Cowboys until Turner Broadcasting came and swiped it and took it as their moniker, and the Atlanta Braves. So you can do that if you have the media muscle, and we can put the media muscle to this team. We also want to work very closely with New England newspapers. That's the Banner, the Journal, the Reformer, and the Eagle, to really work closely with them. We're going to launch a show called on January 1st called Southern Vermont Today. We hope to get that onto CAT TV. We hope to get that onto GNAT TV. And all that does is promote the Storm and the events and Bennington and the sponsors and everyone involved with the team. So you create these machines that are self-perpetuating and self-sustaining. So that's where we are. The only thing we don't have a place to call home. And that kind of puts a wrench into everything else that we're doing, recruiting players, recruiting sponsors, selling season tickets, selling single game tickets, the whole shooting match. So this is a real, we have to get this done. We have to get this done quickly, and that's why we're here tonight. Now, last year when we played half the games out of state in New York. We're not going to do that this year. We are not going to do that this year. And quite honestly, if we can't play games in Bennington, there's a place 20 miles north that has approached us, and we've had 2 pilot conversations with. They'd kind of like us. And they have a turf field, so it's not a bad situation. But we have talked amongst ourselves. We want to play in Bennington. We like the fact that it's the population center. We like the fact that it's, the businesses, there's more businesses to choose from. It's more centrally located to work north, east, south, and west than that M word up north. And we want to be here, and that's, again, why we're here tonight. Going to the back of this page. So what are the proposal points? Well, I'm very heartened to hear that you guys got $5,000 to the sports teams. I think that's great. We'd like to add $8,800 to that over the season. And here's how. We'd like to give you guys $1,100 a game. And how did we arrive on that number? That's what we paid last year at Spinelli to play. But, speaking of Spinelli, that's where we want to play. We think this team is worthy of playing in the big house. It's a full facility. Although it's a great field here, there's no scoreboard. There's very small stands. It is a nice bowl setting, and that works. But, we're not going to get to the next level unless we have the big house. And again, we're talking about I think eight dates if we go all the way through the playoffs from June through October. June, July, August, September, and October. 5 months, 8 dates, so it's 1 point, help me with the math, 1.3, 1.4 games per month. Is that going to adversely affect the field? We don't think so. Is it going to very much positively affect your budget? We think so. And better yet, we know it's going to positively affect all of Bennington, and here's how we know that. I could throw numbers, I could make up numbers, but I want to give you an actual event that's happening. On June 16th, we are having a team from the New York metropolitan area here called the New York Patriots for a practice game. It's a practice game. They've told us we're coming up early, a night, and we're going to spend the night at the hotel of the team, which is the Paradise Inn. They're one of our sponsors. And Phil Pappas, who runs it, he's going to gain somewhere between 25 and 35 rooms at $100 a pop. That's $3,500 to his bottom line. He hasn't spent a penny to market it yet, but that just falls right to the bottom line. All these people have to eat. All these people have to get gas. All these people have to be entertained when they're not playing. All that money can be spent in Bennington, and other teams that come here from New Haven and from New Hampshire, we can offer them the same things. And with our sponsors, we can spread the wealth around. Okay? So that's what the opportunity that all of this makes. It's not, you guys profit, we make a couple of shekels, and Bennington profits. And to quote the football coach of Mount Anthony and now select board member Chad Gordon, who campaigned on, we want to utilize our facilities, our existing athletic facilities to foster greater economic growth. And we think that this is a small start, but a good start. And I have news for you. Just because I coach up at BBA, the girls' tennis team, their athletic director, this is the town's mandate. Their mandate is they want to become the recreational center of Southern Vermont because their outlet businesses are dying. They know they have to reinvent themselves, and that's where they have decided they're going to go. Now the question is Bennington going to get on board with that and share and work with them, or not work with them, or compete with them, or roll over and let them take business? I'd hate to see that happen again and again and again. All right. So what are the benefits for the Storm playing at Spinelli? Well, in the face of what I just heard of belt-tightening school budgets, suddenly you're generating a little bit of positive revenue in where that facility was not generating that. 2, Bennington brings new business and fans, and those visiting teams will partake of Bennington's hospitality opportunities, and I just talked about that. Bennington strengthens its reputation as a regional sports hub, and you get out of the starting blocks and leveraging existing facilities, okay? It's hard, again, when people say a permanent turf field, and I'll just ask, does anyone know what that costs? Have you guys, I can tell you what Manchester costs. 1.2 million. So, you know, that's a lot of money. The question is, if you ever got that money, are you going to go with no business in place for it? Or do you want to start and generate the business, and then you can go to the powers that be and say, hey, look, we've got business going and positive cash flow going. Now we can start to look for the future. So we think this is a way to start to get positive cash flow going for the facility. This is kind of a stretch, but I'll just say it nonetheless. Being in marketing, we were kind of like you guys. The corporation always looked at us as people who spent money and didn't make money because you couldn't prove it. So if you can start generating revenues, then the township and your stakeholders can start to look at you guys and say, wow, they're not only, they're putting a great education, but now they're starting to...
We've got to move along.
All right.
Yeah.
The critical path is we want to move forward at breakneck speed because we don't have the time. And I just want to thank you. My contact information, you should have it. We'd love to hear from you. I don't know what the protocol is here moving forward, but we thank you.
What I'd like to do, first of all, I'd like to ask board members if they have any questions concerning the use of the field, the use of the facilities, and then we can see how we want to proceed from there. Are there any board members here who have any questions concerning the use of the facilities? Ed?
I'd like to know how that $1,100 number was arrived at for last year, and does that cover the cost of maintaining the field?
It's painting the field, there's a maintenance line. Oh.
That fee...
You anticipated my question.
Right, he has but that part is left up in the policy for Tim Brown and so forth to discuss that.
Yes.
Before they come to a conclusion on
What I
that.
just handed to board members was from the April of 2017 board meeting, a recommendation that was made from Tim Brown and myself.
Right.
Contained the cost breakout sheet of the operation maintenance cost. That's what that $1,100 was.
Paul?
Part of that is custodians of cut in the field, the paint for the field, I think the scorekeepers, security, et cetera. So
Right.
it would all be costs that we'd be incurring. It's just the repayment of those costs.
Yeah.
Paul, do they use the inside facilities, whether you've got bathrooms and things like that?
What we have outside is the red building. Those outside bathroom facilities are opened up. I do believe the locker rooms are opened up for the teams. I'd have to double check that with Tim Brown, but I believe that's what we
Does
opened
anybody
up.
know from the storm if the locker rooms are used?
Yes, they are.
So, does the $1,100 that is explained or mapped out on that sheet, is that essentially just covering the costs?
Basically covers the operation costs
Okay.
to prepare the fields, run the facility for
So
that
maybe
day.
part of the theme of the presentation was that this would be a revenue-generating source, but if, in fact, that 1,100 is just covering costs, then that's not necessarily
Yes.
the case? Okay.
Just to say that under the building use and ground policy, and we mentioned Tim Brown, you have certain costs that we put in there for the say to use those things, and then he can make some adjustments to those. But this is a 503C organization. Now, don't get me wrong here. This is a school, an educational institution, and what we're looking for is what support. This is a town, and I was looking for more. We have Jim here that's on the select board that came up, but I want to know, and I've been trying to find out for years, what the town is expected to do for all the adults, not just football. You got softball, you got a whole bunch of other things that the town need to endorse. And I don't know that the town has fully endorsed this yet, and that's what I wanted to be able to say. We've had the team, a lot of teams come and ask to use the public school systems, and that's why we have a policy in place to do that. And we look and fit those in where we can see that there's no risk or minimum risk, and have them take care of the cost. But most of them have been non-profit organizations. So we need, the way you're blowing this out here, we really need to look at the whole perspective of a business coming in, because you're not the only business that this school and Mount Anthony do business with. We have a lot of local people that contribute and do things and come in at the school. And so we want to make sure you're aware of those kind of things out there as well. And so before I'm finished, really, I'm going to, my recommendation was, and all those things, was to give a try for this for a full year, with the understanding that we needed to see how the town was going to come in and help support adult extracurricular activities outside of football here to bring Bennington back and put them back on the map some more. And that's what I was going to say.
So is your question here, Leon, does the town or the select board or whoever support the Storm's request? Is that right?
In trying to do things, you mentioned a whole lot of things out here that should have been on the town's agenda. The hotel, the gas, the restaurants. All of those are things that this town should be interested in.
Absolutely.
Okay? So you got, this school, taxpayers' money, built the school and so forth and doing that. And so you're now saying, I want to use that, but I only want to pay for the fees to maintain what we use at the school. But all those glorified things out there is what the town is trying to say, we need to bring business into Bennington. We need to do this. So I want to hear from them in terms of them getting on board to support an overall program for adults in this town.
Well, Leon, tonight when you and I spoke up here, I've got to be frank with you. As a select board member for the last 6 years, I haven't heard anybody come to us to talk about other adult sports. And I can't speak for the board, but absolutely, I mean, it just makes sense for the town in general, for, you know, businesses, for restaurants and hotels, and just, you know, making this a more popular place to be. And all we need for you to do, and that includes all the board members, is come before the select board. Tell us what your desires are, and let's start from there. But until you come to us, we don't know about it.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions that the board members have? Yes, Dave.
I'm a football guy, but I have some concerns about 5 and then maybe 3 more games. My reasons for this are, one, I was the former athletic director at Mount Anthony, and I can remember our opening game against Fairhaven, and it had rained Thursday and Friday, and our field was looking good, and I called Fairhaven and said, we're going to postpone this game because, and you know, they went nuts because you don't postpone football, geez. I said, well, I'm not worried about, you know, injuries or anything. I'm worried about hurting our field. We moved it to Saturday. It was a beautiful sunny day. It was great. My problem comes, what if this happens now and we move it to Saturday, but the Storm has a game? Somebody's got to get bumped. Second, when I was AD, there were not that many games. I believe there are right now 30 games played on Mount Anthony's field. Third, there's some other dates to be conflicts with. You talk about having 650 to 1,000 people. There's parking concerns, which would affect a musical, a play, or dances that we have. You couldn't run it during those days. The other one that concerns me is if the Storm uses the field, how do we say no to the middle school when they want to come up and play under the lights, or to the Maya Minutemen or flag football, youth, girls and guys soccer, lacrosse, etc., etc. And I guess the last one, if Burton is really interested in their turf field, and Chad talked about a turf field, but I don't believe any line item I've seen on the budget includes a turf field. And, you know, I think Paul has to determine whether our field can take that amount of extra games. So those are my concerns.
I don't want to speak for the Storm, and I'm not here to speak for the Storm. But with respect to any conflicts that may be possible, I think that between the Storm and the athletic director and the other directors of those teams, I think those could be rather easily worked out.
I would like to give this more thought, because I think we're putting the school into a position where we're gonna, if you say yes to one group, how do you say no to another one when there's overuse of the field? And I can also remember days when I played football at Catholic High at the old alumni field, which is now our soccer field, or part of it. And when you played on it and you had 3 days of rain prior to it and a day of rain at the day of the game, that field never recovered for the rest of the season. And I think we're opening the door to that too.
Okay, are there any other comments?
So, as we've heard earlier, the board did approve the Storm using the field, Spinelli Field,
Right.
for one game this season. And part of the reason, I think, for saying one game was there was concern about the impact on the field. And possibly to just assess, how it looked after that, that game. So I don't know whether there's any feedback, whether we have any new information that would be useful to consider in considering a request for more dates.
Well, I think in fact, what did they play, 5 games on the field last year? How many games?
There was one at Spinelli and two at the middle school.
And that included the playoff games?
Yes. Yeah.
So there were three games.
So it was just
That's a good
one,
point,
but
yeah.
just one on Spinelli, though.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paul, can you comment on any of that, please?
Again, Tim Brown asked for a recommendation that we present in April, just based on what we forecast. And again, I think it's within that recommendation. In a 50-day time period for the fall season, there's there's right around 30 games being played on Spinelli Field just from Mount Anthony sports. When we looked at the same time period, the middle school, I think, had 20 games, so it was less use. That's when the recommendation was, let's try to do one game Spinelli, one game middle school, then, if made playoffs, which they did, playoff game at the middle school field. Based on what each field's conditions at the end of the fall season, I have a lot of work in the spring. I'd be reluctant to encourage more use on the field at this point.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Paul or anybody else? Well, I know that the Storm would like to have an indication as to how the board feels about this. Ed has said that he wanted some more time, felt that is the general consensus here of board members that they would like more time, or are they willing to vote on the issue now?
You mean for the increase versus what we allowed
Right,
before?
well, let's just say, I think that the vote would be on what they've asked for.
Okay, because that part I'm asking that we have some support from the town itself. I mean, in terms of our fields and things, we knew what we were able to let the Storms have. And right now, I hate to say Tim Brown, he turns down practices and other things on that field so that he don't overuse it. And so we needed to have a more comprehensive backing as to what we can do for our adults in the town if we're gonna turn this over and say that we wanna be a full-time
Right.
supporter of the Storms in all their games.
Right, okay, but I think that the consideration that we have to give, the issue that we have to give consideration to, is the Storm's request to use the field for approximately, or the potential of using it for 8 games. That does not include the middle school field, it is just the Spinelli Field. Is that right?
That would be, yes,
That's the
5
request.
games minimum, 8 games maximum.
Right, 5 games minimum, 8 games maximum, if they go all the way.
So, can I
Yes.
say something again? Yeah, I mean,
You know what, let me amend that. It would, because we could play a practice game at the middle school, so it could, 4 games minimum and 7 games maximum. I hate to keep, I'm not trying to create a moving target.
Right, I understand.
I'm just trying
Yeah.
to make things as palatable as possible for you guys.
Thank you.
so I mean, I think the proposal is compelling in certain respects. My concern is that we are, as a board, being asked to make a decision on something that perhaps in other situations, we're not approached by whatever organizations want to use the field. I think that's something that we've delegated, ultimately to Tim Brown or Paul to make decisions on. And if we're stepping in this situation, which, again, it sounds like there's a lot of positive things to say about it, are we going to be expected to weigh in on every time somebody wants to use the field? And an equally compelling argument perhaps could be made for those cases. So I guess I'm questioning our sort of the jurisdiction here. I mean, yeah, we're the board, but are we overruling what we've asked somebody else to do who has considered all the information that, we're not necessarily looking
I
at?
think what we've done in the past is the board has asked for a recommendation from
Right.
the athletic director and from the director of buildings and grounds. And by and large, at least in my experience, the board has gone along with their recommendation. And it is my understanding from what Paul has said that he does not recommend it. Tim Brown, when I asked him about it, he said that, how do I phrase this? He said he didn't want to get involved in it. Basically, that's what he said. So we have that's the way it's been, Dave, in the past, is they've made a recommendation, and this would apply to other things too. So we have the recommendation or the opinion of the Director of Buildings and Grounds, and then I think that it is the board's decision to make, or the board's obligation to make that decision.
Okay.
One quick question, if I may. Being the owner for a few years now, I know where we play, say like Tamarack or Scottsville, what schools we played at versus Mount Anthony. Based on learning that the $1,100 basically only covers the field fees and usage and all that and what goes into it. If we were to play, let's say 2 games in the middle school, 2 games at the high school, as for example, I know that the revenue coming in, we would be able to do more than the $1,100, to do more than just cover the bare costs. We could negotiate something if you guys would allow us to do more games here. That's something that I would easily consider doing, because I know that we would get, let's say, $2,000 versus $6,000. We could give more. So that's something that I would like to talk further more if we could.
It's not the money.
I don't think it's
The money.
at least speaking for myself, it's not the money issue.
Yep.
I think the issue that this board has to recognize and be able to make a decision on is the wear and tear of the fields.
I agree.
The obligation that we have to all the other teams that use both fields. And I think the easiest way for the thing for the board to do is to make a decision on your original proposal. If then you want to change that proposal, or they could entertain another proposal. But I think that originally we should vote on your proposal, because you presented that to us.
Yes, okay, thank you.
So is there anybody that would like to make a motion to either approve or disapprove, or bring that to the table?
I'll move it, since
Okay. Do we have a second to it?
Second.
You have a second to it?
What's the motion?
The motion
it
is to approve.
allow the Storms to, their request for the field of Mount Anthony for 1 year. Was it 1 year? Yeah, it was 1 year.
It would certainly
Okay.
be for 1 year. And that proposal would be a fee of $1,100 per use of the field. The field, we would be responsible for the upkeep of the field, the lines and that sort of thing. They would use the locker room facilities. And those would be the possibility of 8 games, but there certainly would be at least 4 games. Is that right?
5.
Okay. That's the motion. We have a second to it. There's any discussion on it?
You are a
Oh, I'm
second.
sorry.
Ron did.
Does anybody have a question on it?
No, he just,
No, Ron
he
seconded
seconded
it.
it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we have a second then. We're all set then. So we have a motion on the tape, on the floor. We've asked for discussion. We've had discussion. I'll ask for a vote now. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is defeated. Now, if the storm, I'm sorry, we should,
People
Nay.
opposed? Ron was in favor.
Ron was in favor.
We've
Right.
got 1, 2, 3.
4, 5,
2, 4, 5, and what do you,
5.
no, I was in
Right.
favor. I made the motion. I got to
One
vote
for, and 2 abstain. You abstained, Leon?
No, I made the
He said
motion,
he
so
made-
I made the motion, so I
Ron
got to
said
vote.
yes.
Okay, 2,
Fran, did you?
I abstained.
Okay, okay.
I'd love to see it personally, but I think it
That was part of the discussion that we had just
Yeah.
a minute ago.
contributes to
so we've voted now. If the storm wishes to make another proposal, we certainly would entertain it. I'm sorry, but that's the decision of the board.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Kid Joe, if you have to go evacuate the school, it's to assemble for full evacuation.
Okay,
Muddy.
we can move on. There was an
And
issue,
overusing it.
that was brought to our attention at our last meeting by Tim Brown by Tim Payne, sorry, in terms of the supervision of kids arriving early at the middle school. We have had a small number of people who have approached board members concerning this and wanting to see if we could come up with some sort of supervision of those kids who arrive before the school is officially opened. My understanding is, Tim, maybe you want to just go over this. Why don't you tell me exactly what the situation, or tell us what the situation is?
So at the start of the second trimester, which was December the 4th, a Monday, buses, working with Mike Gardner through Dufour, buses started to deliver kids closer to the 7:30 opening. And the building is now physically opened at 7:30 rather than 6:30, which was the previous standard. We've had Mr. Colkeen and I and Renee have had conversations with Mike Gardner. We've been working closely, and the bus delivery side of it's been quite good. I did have a single student who was arriving prior to my arriving in the building at 7, but we've sorted that out. The student didn't think they were able to ride a bus, which in fact they were able to do. And I have personally not had any phone calls or emails or any contact from parents with concerns about earlier as far as supervision. I think that I will report this, that the staff has been overwhelmingly happy with it, as we haven't been loading the building at 7 o'clock with hundreds of kids. We've been loading the building at 7:30.
We should point out, remind everyone that the staff aren't in the building at 7 o'clock. They don't need to be here till 7:30.
Per the contract, I'm sorry, yes, per the contract, both your paraprofessionals and teachers are not required to be in the building until 7:30. So that seems to be going along. We've had to sort some things out. There was a little bit of traffic congestion in the first couple of weeks as parents were still delivering kids in their cars at 7:30 at the same time buses were arriving. But I think parents are kind of sorting that out, and after a conversation with Mike this past week, I think we've got a couple of other ideas that we can further sort that out as well. And like I said, I stand at the doors at 7:20 to 7:30, checking in with administration. We do not have a crush of kids who are getting delivered by parents waiting outside. And we've been checking on that. So the original, when Tim and I talked about it, we talked about it, is there a need to bring in a staff member prior to 7:30 to be available to supervise kids who might arrive early? I don't see that pressing need right now, but that's something we could explore if it.
Well, we have discussed it, and we'll certainly go by your, at least as far as I'm concerned, we'll go by your suggestion. If a concern does develop, if there are a number of parents who have legitimate concerns about their kids standing in the cold,
Sure.
the board will address it. if it has to be addressed before our next meeting or something, we'll come up with something that'll work.
Sure, absolutely. But what we're doing, as far as kids, the buses are arriving 2 or 3 minutes at most before the 7:30. We have an administrator standing out there to be with them as we're opening the buildings and welcoming them to the building. And again, I had one individual who was being dropped prior to 7 o'clock, and we've worked that out with that family to make sure that that student arrives after 7:30 and does not have to sit on the
That may
boat.
be the one. Does anybody have any comment on that? Are you comfortable with?
No, I
the
just think
solution?
that's the process that it should go through, still is saying if something come up, because they need to investigate why are they here? And take care of that, because, and then we don't have to come back here to the board to do that.
Very good. Are there any other comments on that particular issue?
I guess I'm
Yes.
just curious. School board members heard from someone in
Yes.
the community, but Tim did not.
And we received no complaints at central office.
Sounds like that's something we should address.
I would always encourage board members, if you're at Price Chopper and someone stops you over, watermelon, please send them in my direction. Be happy to answer the question or help out the individual student. Absolutely.
When I was contacted, I told the individual to get in touch with Tim. So never mind.
It's just, as the policy says.
Yeah, right.
When I was contacted, I told him to come to the board because it was on tonight's agenda.
Yep, perfect. And nobody's here. Very good, thank you. Can we move on then?
Yep.
Very good. Excuse me, educate. Dave?
Yeah, the agenda, I think, incorrectly listed topic that we covered last month and didn't get picked up, so nothing to report on that. The Ed Committee did meet, and we reviewed and then approved, after some spirited discussion, a proposal for a new course on food systems, and approved a recommendation to bring to the full board. I know a lot of the board members were here for that, but some weren't, and I don't know if, Laura, you have any more handouts, if anyone's
do. Does
interested
anyone
in
need-
seeing the
Anyone like a
description of the
handout?
course.
Description of the class? Can you hand me one?
We didn't approve that.
Yeah, we said we'd get the vote. We did. Because we would bring it to the board.
No. So, there's some urgency to this as far as getting it into the course of study for next year. It needs to be done by tomorrow,
Yep.
according to the
Yes.
acting principal. And that's why we were asked to address it tonight. This would be a short block course, a science class taught by a teacher who has proposed it. We're not sure, if I understand correctly, whether it's being proposed as a pass-fail or a graded course. So that was a question. It would provide another pathway for students who were interested in exploring food systems, farming, agriculture, and so forth. There were some questions about whether the course not conflicted with CDC offering, but was covering material that in the past has been offered through the CDC and hadn't generated a lot of interest, so there was some discussion about that. There was also some discussion about whether a comparable class might be available online. So we had that discussion, and as I said, the board, or the committee rather, did vote to bring this to the full board to consider. So here we are. If I can answer any questions, I'd be happy to, or if Laura would like to, that.
So we need a motion to vote on it?
Was this recommended by the administration? Endorsed by?
Yeah?
Yes.
Yes.
So, I mean, and some of the questions I asked were real valid, that we needed to make sure we did some things to find out about who should be teaching this class. Whether it should be at the Career Development Center, whether it should be at Mount Anthony and other things out here. So I just want to make sure that we ain't rushing into something that should be covered another place. And if we talk about putting it on the curriculum to have a slot for it, it still need to be determined before we put it in there, who's gonna run the class legally as to who should be managing it. Career Development Center, Mount
What's the proper
Anthony.
endorsement to teach this course?
What's that?
My question would be, what is the proper endorsement to teach this course, whether it's a technical license or a
Right,
science
and
license?
so it's a bunch of questions that I'm trying to ask. I realize what we keep trying to do and push these things on, but somehow we have just got to make sure we do diligence in getting all these things done right, and and before we just put them out here. And
Well,
so-
I think that we can, or if the board agrees, we can put it in the syllabus, in the course of studies. And if we run into problems or we can't find the proper procedures, we can always cancel it. But at least this gives us the opportunity to move forward. If we don't have it there in the course of studies, then it's just not going to be able to be offered. We can work on some of the things that you're talking about, Leon, with the CDC or through the CDC and Laura, or whoever you would like to do it. But I think that it makes sense to at least include it in the course of study.
Is the course of study going to be printed before the next MAU board meeting?
Yes, it has to be in tomorrow.
But will that
You got-
stop us
I'm
from
asking
doing
these
it?
questions because, you had your ed meeting when I was still in Pownell, so
Okay.
I wasn't
Yeah.
there to ask those then.
Yeah.
So will just the course of studies is a document that we put out. And if we're going to see a need and do that, I'm saying, we don't have to have the course of studies in print in order to do that. Is there a requirement for that?
Well, it gives the students and the people that are making up the schedule a chance to work things out so that we know the number of students that are interested in taking the course. And we also gives us an opportunity to see if we can work it out in terms of the schedule. Is that right, Laura?
The scheduling starts to happen after the holidays, which I've
Right.
learned as well. So, and this was tabled at the last meeting so that there was a platform at the ed meeting to have teachers come. So it was on we did table it on purpose to meet the need for the last meeting. And again, just to remind you, it is just a short block offering. And again, it's to honor that we've built this interest in agricultural learning starting here at the middle school, and we have students that the science department sees coming through that are showing an interest, and it does align with the standards that we do need. These are prioritized standards we have on here, and I think the intent was kind of what you're getting after. If there is an interest, the intent that this teacher wants to take is to build this, and we do have a great relationship with the CDC Center, so this could be the start of something that also accentuates the greenhouse attached to the high school.
And the same concerns though with the middle school program and sustainability, and what is the qualifications of the person who teaches that course, and what's the right endorsement for the teacher who teaches that course?
Okay, are there any other questions?
I'm just curious about the students that, I suppose at the middle school that are taking comparable courses. Are they focused on this as a science type course, or are they focusing on future farmer type?
So the sustainability, if you want to-
It's a unified course here, so it's a trimester offering that students would take along with health and an art class.
and she is adhering to the next generation science standards as well, and the health standards. This particular short block is going through the lens of the next generation science standards.
Okay, so just to be clear, the students that would be attracted to this would be science students, essentially.
Yeah, they would be
people-
looking, they would have been a group of students that had shown a particular interest in this avenue of science. This particular science teacher could see it lending itself to collaboration with health, with some other areas, environmental science as well. But it was just to honor this interest that we've been building in this particular area of science that's starting here at the middle school, and to get a sense. So it was that's how it started to be generated.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? If-
I'm not against this per se, but I'm not sure where it belongs. I think I've seen a similar course listed in federal documents where it becomes a career cluster for technical schools to be teaching.
Well, maybe
And
we
I
could,
think we need to examine that some more.
sure. I think we can, all this does is just get us started.
Yeah.
And we've got the proper, okay, if there
Well,
are,
if you put it in the program of studies and students sign up for it, the course is going to run.
Right.
So,
well, it doesn't have to,
Well,
but I would hope that it would.
I mean, so let's say it gets a lot of interest and it runs. What is the downside of that?
It's gonna be at the Career Development Center because the program should be over there.
I just think I think we're mixing and matching a little bit. So an interest block is a 45-minute semester course. In my 20 years of being in this community, they changed to kind of reflect what interests kids, or what teachers are trying to figure out what interests kids. A CDC program, as we talked about in the Education Committee, that's a 2-year certification similar to the building trades, automotive. That's a different opportunity for kids. The CDC may have offered in the freshman year a semester course like, hey, are you interested in ag? This is the short block, but you're not going to come back for a certification program until your junior or senior year. We said this in the Ed Committee, all you're doing, in my opinion of this, and I'm just one voice here, is asking kids, anybody interested in pursuing something you may have started in the middle school? If it's 10 or 12 kids, that's information that informs the CDC that says, hey, guess what? You do have 10 or 12 kids who could be candidates for your program in 2 years' time. And you're just, all you're doing is checking for interest. But I don't see it as the competition directly to the CDC. The CDC's bread and butter is the 2-year commitment that kids make to specific areas of interest.
actually, one of their more profitable is the shot blocks, but.
I'm sorry?
One of their more profitable are the shot blocks, but, the other question, and again, I apologize, I was not at the Ed Committee, I was at the panel board meeting. When we add a course, and there's a block to check here, what course is coming out of the catalog. And at the same time that we're concerned about class size and having discussions about class size and the impact of declining enrollment, and now we add a course without taking anything out, are we diluting enrollment over a wider spectrum of courses? Was that discussed?
No, it has been discussed. It was not brought up at this meeting. It has come up in other situations where we've talked about adding classes. And I think under other, administrators.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the general comment there was, well, if we're not talking about, this shouldn't have any impact on staffing one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question is this a class that is appropriate to the curriculum? And that, and Leon is, raising good questions, I think, in that regard. But ultimately, the budget will decide, how many teachers.
I'm in agreement as long as it doesn't add sections. So if we don't want to take the amount of students, what grade level would this primarily be?
Open to 9th through 12th graders.
9 through 12.
So that makes it even more difficult about what section. If this is a science, there should be no more sections of science being offered next year than there is currently this
Right,
year.
and this is just an interest block, so it's not in competition with the biology, chemistry. These are typically either pass, fail, there's a couple that are graded
But it's still going to fill a
courses.
teacher's schedule. It's going to require a teacher to teach it. So, all right, so if it's an interest block, then there shouldn't, the total number of interest block offerings next year shouldn't be any more than it is this year. Then I'm in agreement with certainly trying different blocks of interest, but with different topics. But as we look at class size numbers and staffing levels, I don't want it to impact there.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, are there any other questions? If not, we'd entertain a motion. Somebody make a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. everybody understand what we're voting on? We're just going to be listing the program that has been introduced to us through the administration at the high school. It doesn't mean that program is going to run, it just is an idea of showing interest in.
Yeah, and the board should understand that. Not every program or course in the program of studies is run every semester.
Right.
Because
That's right.
it varies by
Right.
interest.
Right.
Right,
And
that's a
staffing
very
and
important
all-
point, right,
Yeah.
that's a very important point.
Okay. If there are no other questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One opposed, Richard?
Two.
Two? I'm sorry, I didn't get,
No, I'm for it.
okay. Fran, were you opposed?
I said aye.
It was.
Oh, I'm
Ed
sorry,
and
oh, I'm sorry,
Leon.
okay. Abstentions?
Ed and Leon.
Well, the motion passes then. Okay, we can move on. Let's see, administrators report, Laura?
So on December, I'll start with professional learning for staff. On December 6th was a half professional learning day in the afternoon. The goal was to continue towards building our proficiency-based learning system. Departments in the high school continue to work together on scoring criteria. A great example is, as you see the prioritized standards on the class description you have, they're coming up with what are some common scoring criteria that we can use as a department together. The entire faculty also spent time together with me, understanding as a whole group this shifts towards a proficiency-based learning system. Which is quite different than our traditional system. During the month of November, I had a group of MAU students, staff, and administration who have been meeting to review traditions that we have at Mount Anthony to ensure that they are equitable, inclusive, affordable, aligned with student rules and policies, and fun in big capital letters. So we met about twice a month. We tried to not compete with the sports season, and we talked about what are the different parts of homecoming and prom and ball and yearbook. It was really nice to have this collaborative setting, and then the ideas that were generated, we had innovation sessions, and we still put things on there that we thought were important, and then the group was charged with going out and sharing those ideas with staff and students at different club meetings. And those ideas have come back, and that's where we are in this moment. And then we'll make recommendations to groups that organize those events about some possible updates or changes, or coveting certain traditions. I want to share that one of our math teachers, Megan Morgan Puglisi, today, she found out this week, but we celebrated today that she received her national board certification.
Oh, great.
She completed it in a year. And the intent of the program is to develop, retain, recognize accomplished teachers, and to generate ongoing improvement in schools nationwide. So at our faculty meeting today, that was celebrated, and the NEA came and local representatives and thanked her for her hard work. So we have another national board certified teacher.
She passed all the different stages?
She did, in a
The whole
year.
thing? In a year?
In a
Wow.
year. And then my last item would be to pass around and share Grateful Hearts is a local group that works on rescuing food, feeding neighbors, and building community. Our Twilight program is a piece of that. So I've got two copies for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. They were actually just highlighted. Around.
Thank you.
Now we're famous.
Where's this from, Laura?
Our Twilight program.
Oh, I'm special.
It's on the bottom, it's from
No,
Edward
that's
Green.
black and white. Do you remember when Everett gave us these things and said, it will save on paper. Every meeting, we get paper.
So I just want to, I wanted to highlight that Twilight, which is one of our, if we look at our multi-tiered systems of support in our implementation manual, they're listed as a Tier 3 program. The students go to work in the morning, and then they go to school in the afternoon. And again, they're highlighted in here, so it highlights the whole program, and Twilight is one piece of it, but we're incredibly proud.
Thank you very much. And do congratulate, I'm sorry, I missed your name, the lady.
Megan Morgan, please.
Yes,
Yes.
from the board. That's
Yes.
very commendable.
Should we
Lot of
write
work, and that's
should we
great.
write a letter on that one?
Yes, I think we should. And I'll ask Kevin to do that.
All right, I'm up. Okay. Short report from the middle school. I just wanted to thank Matt Edwards and Jay Sager. They are the chorus and band teachers here at the middle school. Chorus concert was on November the 28th. Band concert was on the 29th. We very heavily attended. It was nice to see the crowd out for kind of a seasonal concert. I also want to thank Darlene and the custodial crew for their usual hard work, and the setting was really well done, and I appreciate their time and effort, Paul. You can make sure I say that to them again tomorrow. The end of our first trimester at the middle school was the 1st of December. In case folks are checking in on that as we go into the holiday break. Holiday break starts this Saturday, just in case moms and dads are hearing from their students that might be half days Thursday or Friday or something like that. That's not true. They're full days, Thursday and Friday. Thank you, Mr. Payne. I want to thank Laura and Melissa Senecal for joining us on the 6th. Laura was a busy individual. She had half her professional development day with her own high school crew, and then came up and gave an outstanding training for the middle school. So I want to thank Laura for flying around on the 6th and helping us out. And then we did have a snow day just most recently last week. That was the day that we were supposed to see Diana Malkin. Just a reminder to the school board, Diana Malkin is the literacy coach who's been working with us through the fall, and she will continue to be with us during the spring. Our next big project is looking at our schedule and revamping it for next year to make it easier to get kids the help and enrichment that they need. So that we're looking forward to that discussion. So much so that we're rescheduling her for the first weeks of January and not letting her escape without a new date. So we look forward to that work. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, we can move on then. There's a slight error. This
Skylar.
student representative. Yeah, Skylar?
Okay. The MAUHS Drama Department on Thursday, December 21st, so tomorrow, at 7 o'clock is performing a winter concert. The concert will be in the Mount Anthony Auditorium, the high school auditorium. Admission is free. However, non-perishable donations are being accepted at the doors and will all be donated to the Sacred Heart Parish Center. The concert will include performances from the Mount Anthony High School's choir, band, chamber singers, jazz band, Madronos, that's a music group. I'm sorry about the pronunciation on that one, and Da Capos. Winter sports started not too long ago. Some of our programs include track, wrestling, ski, basketball, dance, winter cheer, swim, and we actually have a ski and snowboarding club that's more of a downhill as opposed to the cross-country skiing. Wrestling had a match just a few days ago, and surprisingly, actually, we took a win. We were thought to lose because we actually had to forfeit 5 of our matches for athlete injuries, but we still took the win against Noble, Maine, so that was awesome to see. The winter play is coming up in early February. Rehearsals and stuff for that have started at the high school. Peter and the Starcatchers. Peter and the Starcatcher is our childhood favorite fairy tale with a little bit of a twist. The performance is a storytelling show. Unlike many other shows, Peter and the Starcatcher focuses strongly on the actor's use of non-traditional and symbolic props rather than utilizing a full set materials. The show involves a lot of improv and is performed on a smaller set. Being very symbolic, this play stretches the students' imagination and makes them think outside of the box. Hopefully, it'll do the same for the audience. Double casted with 25 students participating, there will be a total of 4 shows, then that'll be showing in early February. A recent event that took place at the high school, named Deck the Halls at MAU. During our seminar classes in the middle of our day, students have been decorating the doors of the classrooms. Students from Sacred Heart have come down and judged the doors. There were 4 different categories that the doors could win. There's Best Show, Most Original, Most Creative Use of Materials, and Most Interactive. We had a total of 27 seminars participating. This includes covering the doors with paper and drawing on them and just making them fun and interesting things to see going throughout the hallways. And Miss Estes, actually the very nice lady that took our picture earlier, said that this was the most classes that she's ever seen participate in the store. So that was awesome to see.
Well, thank you very much. Sounds like you've had a busy couple of weeks. That's great. Any questions, Skylar? If not, we can move on then to the superintendent's report.
Just one item I need to bring to your attention. Some of you at your local board meetings have already heard this. There was something left out of the educational support staff contract negotiations that had been agreed to, that all para-educators would become employees of the SVSU. We found that in the minutes of May 23rd, that both sides had agreed to that, but somehow got left out of the agreement, and the brief sheet that we had given all boards for the presentation on voting to ratify the contract, that was out of it also, and it was caught in budget meetings when the line item for support staff in supervisory unions escalated, and as we explained that, board members expressed they weren't aware that that had happened. So there is a memorandum of agreement drafted by our attorney, Dina Atwood, that I can hand out to you.
Who dropped the ball on this?
I beg your pardon, there was no ball dropped.
No, it's clearly in the minutes.
It was clearly something that we said that we're already doing at SVSU, was moving the paraprofessionals over. We had approximately 90% of them already moved, and it made sense to move the rest of them, and everybody agreed of that, and that was fine. And so it was until someone asked that we have it documented that way. In the minutes it was, but we didn't make it part of the agreement, so there was no ball drop.
No,
So
well, when I said
so
who dropped the
attorney
ball, I
felt-
meant in the contract that was.
So because there was some question, our attorney felt that it's best to be clear, sign the memorandum.
Right.
So what I need is a motion from the board to authorize the chair to sign, which I have the master agreement, that the chair to sign for this change. It really has no impact on the SVSU.
Right.
All paraeducators for SVSU are already SVSU employees, so it's.
I'll move it.
Second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions?
Okay, that's for Tim. And the only other thing I'll mention, Tim did mention the snow day that we had, so he gave me an opening, and it's the big first one of the year, so it's all, I'll take the opportunity to explain it. I did hear a few complaints that we could have had school, could have had a delay. Well, at 5:15 at 4:45 in the morning, which is when we begin those series of phone calls, it certainly didn't appear that way. We always explore our options. Will a delay work? Bus company didn't feel that it would. We forecast at that time, certainly looked at it was going to remain slick throughout the morning, well beyond when a delay would work. And why it may have changed the rain and appeared clear in Bennington in time, it wasn't so in Shaftesbury, Woodford, or Palm. So one of the things the bus company likes to say, and I say the same, we'll take all the phone calls complaining that we should have called off school rather than the one phone call that we have a bus off the road and injured students, so that we always go with a side of caution. And remember that we're doing it in a very tight time window, because though the buses are getting a little later to the middle school this year, they do run early. What are you doing? So, that's it. I wish everybody a happy holiday season.
Okay, I have nothing to add? Are there any other comments, issues that board members would like to bring up?
Motion to adjourn.
Well, I'd just like, once again, to repeat what the superintendent has said. Wish everybody a very happy and productive year, as well as a Merry Christmas. That's it. Have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.